I'm a hair mineral analysis expert. I have a background in functional medicine, and I educate people using HTMA testing to maximize health, erase debilitating symptoms, and gain energy. I'm a multi-time kettlebell sport world champion, and I'm constantly searching for high-performance pros from all over the world to bring you this human optimization podcast. My name is Lisa Pitel-Killah. Hi there, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. And I am super excited to have here with us today, Lorna Kleidman. Let me introduce her and what an amazing story she has to share. Lorna is a 5-time world champion, author, and personal trainer with a bachelor's in exercise science, but her greatest triumph is not visible to the eye. Her journey was shaped by a relentless hunger to experience her full potential, guiding her to the highest ranks in kettlebell sport. She also brings a personal, results-oriented approach to her clientele. As a child and young adult, Lorna suffered from debilitating asthma, making it impossible for her to play sports. After joining a gym in her late 20s, she began to partake in aerobics classes, boxing, and eventually running, conquering her asthma over the course of 9 years. I can't wait to hear all about that. And Lorna also created KettleX Fitness for high cardio workouts, which can be done at home. And she's going to tell us all about that today, because I know many of you are going to be working out at home because we all have home gyms now with COVID, right? So excited to hear about that too. So welcome, Lorna.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me. It's great to be here and great to talk to you.
Excellent. Yeah. And again, we have some amazing stories to share. And it's always so powerful when you have something personal that you've overcome. And to the extent that you have done, I really want people to understand that, because you're competing and doing things at a level that is so elite. And I really kind of want to start at the base of where that all became to be, because I think it is absolutely fascinating. So let's talk about that childhood struggle with asthma. Let's talk about the fact, that you couldn't even participate with other kids in sports.
No. In grade school, it was recommended and required that we participate in after school sports. I was able to run around just a little bit, a few feet, maybe a minute or so or less. And then I would be hunched over because I really couldn't breathe. And my lungs were not strong enough to help me to run during basketball or recess or any of the games that I was playing. So it was quite challenging. I would just have to I was a start and stop kind of kid, and that's it. And I had a really hard time breathing. And there really wasn't much medication that the doctors would offer. I got allergy shots, and that was about it. I didn't have an inhaler until I was in my late 20s. So it was just something that I dealt with. And it was a struggle. I liked to move. I liked to, run around, but it was just a big handicap. Then in my 20s, I joined a gym, a local gym, and I started to take these high impact aerobics classes. Yeah. And where you were kicking and knees up and traversing the studio and doing hundreds of jumping jacks and straight into push-ups. And it was really fun because the teacher was very enthusiastic and everybody was in great shape. Now, I was in my late 20s at that point, and the women in the classes were also my age or older, young moms, 30s, sometimes 40s. Mm-hmm. I couldn't keep up with them. I wanted to, so I'd go full force kicking and, running around the studio and doing grapevines and this and that. And within a minute or 90 seconds, I couldn't breathe. And I'd have to, retreat to the side of the studio, catch my breath. And then when I felt I was ready to resume, I'd resume. So it was just always start, stop, start, stop. And it took about a year for me taking that class. It took it about 3 or 4 times a week because it was so much fun. Yeah. And I loved the camaraderie of the people in the class. I loved the teacher. I loved the music. I loved the whole experience. But it took me almost a year before I could get through the entire hour without stopping. And it was quite difficult. Then I got into step classes and boxing classes and jogging outside. And each day was just, what can I do? What else can I do today? Can I jog an extra quarter mile? Even if I have to stop every once in a while, can I do a little more? Or, what does it feel like to, try this class or that class? And I realized I really enjoy things that involve technique. So that could be boxing, you know, how do you do this punch correctly, or archery, or even like tennis, things like that. With the exception of golf, I tried golf. I didn't really take to it, but most everything else, if it involves some kind of technique, I really like it. So over the course of all of these, of being a gym class junkie for a good 8 to 10 years, I slowly was able to overcome my asthma, not because that was my goal. It just happened as a result of really enjoying the classes. So when people want to work out, I say, you know what, if you don't want to spend money on a trainer, the best thing you can do is find a class that you love, because you'll be motivated to keep going back.
Oh, absolutely. I can't agree with you more. And that's why I always say, if you don't love it, like, do something you love. If you're doing it just because you feel you have to, then that's not emotionally supportive to your health either, right? Energetically. And so that's a really good point. And so that's incredible, just with that background in fitness, being able to kind of work your way up slowly, right? And really taking that mindset of just really enjoying it, and then getting an outcome that was something that was very positive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so let's talk about getting started in kettlebells. Like, when did all that sort of happen in the midst of this changeover?
Well, it was really a wonderful occurrence that I moved to Florida for a couple of years with my husband when we first got married. And in Florida, the first thing I did was, actually before I moved, I was researching classes, because I didn't want to miss a day of my 2-hour workout. So I was, before I sold my massage therapy practice, before I sold my apartment, sold my car, I was researching fitness classes. So I couldn't really find anything that I loved down there that was on the caliber of what I was doing in New York at the time. So I found it, I was introduced to a trainer. I heard he was really good. I said, can I work with you a couple times a week? He said, sure. Well, he introduced me to kettlebell fitness. Now, this gentleman, this trainer, was the co-founder and educational developer for Kettlebell Concepts. And I was fortunate enough to train with him for 2 years. So I learned a lot about kettlebell fitness, kettlebells, what makes them different. And then he found out about kettlebell sport competitions. And he said, you know, I think you'd like it. I think you might do well at this. And he introduced me to a man who became my first coach, and he was based in San Diego. So I went out to see this coach. I did a weekend intensive with him, and the coach said, you know, he said, I'm hosting a competition here in San Diego in 8 months. It's an international competition with IGSF, the old IGSF, which is now WKSF. He said, I think you do well with the 16 kg snatch. At that time, women only did snatch. They weren't doing long cycle or jerk. So this is way back, right? So I said, well, if you think I'll do well, I'll work hard and I'll try. So he trained me remotely. I went back to New York, and then I did the 16 kg snatch. I got gold in my age category and silver in my weight category. And as nervous and how tension ridden as it was, I enjoyed the experience, and I more so enjoyed the process of preparing for the competition. I really loved the process, and I said, okay, what's next? Let's see what else I can do. And that's how it all started.
Wow. And I feel like so many of us are the same. We kind of fall apart, or someone introduces it, you know, and then it's like, oh, I can't wait to get back on the platform. I didn't realize I'd love it this much.
Yes,
so that's
exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so 16 kg snatch, that's a big jump too for your first competition. Most people start out with a 12 or an 8 now, right? As women. So that's a hefty weight to use for your first competition too. So that is definitely quite an achievement.
It was. Well, the coach I was working with I don't even think there was an option back then for a lighter weight. Women it was very limited. Women were just doing snatch and just 16. But since 2007, I mean, look at how far we've come. With, for example, Valery Fedorenko creating the little bit of a thinner handle, which was so great for women, and also introducing the 8 kg and the 12 kg kettlebells for women to start, and even men who are starting sometimes use the 12 kg. So there were lots of implementations that were made that made kettlebell sport more attractive and less intimidating to start, and that was really groundbreaking.
Yeah, and I think that's really attracted a lot of our new lifters today, and that makes me happy because I love the sport, obviously, and I just want to see it grow more and more across North America for sure.
Obviously you do. Yes, I know you do. I know
And
you
so
do.
I want people to understand. So that was your first competition. And so let's just touch a teeny bit on, with regards to talking about that asthma, right? Kind of getting it under control over the course of those classes before you moved and got involved in sport. How did you find when you first started sport? Was there, I guess, transitional periods that you had with regards to breathing and things like that you had to deal with?
It wasn't too bad because when I started kettlebell training for kettlebell sport, my conditioning was already very good because of all those years of 2 hours a day at the gym taking, you know, whether it was step class or boxing. The boxing really stepped it up a notch. I think boxing is one of the best conditioning workouts you can do and training. So you're jumping rope, you're running stairs, you're hitting the bag, you're hitting pads, you're doing push-ups. So that really brought my conditioning to another level. So once I started training, it was more about specific endurance, grip endurance, learning the technique, which never ends. But my conditioning at that point and my breathing was okay. So at least I had that under my belt. And then, you know, it's just a matter of learning all the other elements.
Yeah, absolutely. And so currently, I mean, you're now competing or have been for quite some time at the professional level. So I really want you to get into that, explain to everyone who's potentially watching and everyone who's listening what that really means and the weights that you're using.
So now, currently, the past 4 or 5 years, I've been training to make progress with the 24 kg, which is the 53-pound belt. And, you know, the process never ends. There was a point last year where I was doing everything I thought right. And I've deconstructed and reconstructed the technique in every possible conceptual way you can, whether it's the way you place your stance or your footwork, or the way the hips move, or the way the acceleration pull moves, or the way you fixate, the way you drop. I've tried every single iteration. And there was just one time where there was one day when I said, you know what, it can't be this hard. There must be some things I'm doing wrong, because I wasn't making progress. Some of it was the programming, the coach I was using. Some of it was the way I was breathing, some of it the way I was dropping. And I just tweaked a number of things. And then over the course of maybe 3 or 4 months, things just fell into place. And I made a huge PR from 136 in 10 minutes to 169 in 10 minutes, which I did in May and in June of this year. And it just things just broke open finally. You know, it took years, but it broke open. It's a long process.
It is. And I think that's where some people get a little bit, maybe a little bit frustrated, but they have to be patient, right? A lot of times even, and for those of you listening, I really want you to understand. So 53 pounds, that is heavy when you're taking it from below your knees up over your head in one constant motion. And so making even a 5-rep PR with that weight is one of those celebratory moments. That is that is a huge accomplishment. And yeah, it's just absolutely incredible.
Thank you. Well, it's a tough process to figure out what works for the individual, because you see these competitors, these great women or men on YouTube, and you think you're seeing what they're doing, but what your eye sees may not really be what they're doing. So even though we try to emulate their movements, it may not be the case that, you know, we think we're seeing what we're seeing. So we need to, it's really about feeling what works for you. If it feels easy, if it feels like it's not pulling on the hand, if it feels you know, like you're not getting out of breath so soon as you used to, then you're on the right
You're
track.
on the right track.
It
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
the end, it's got to feel good. When it feels good, you're going to be able to go further.
Yeah.
If it
Yeah.
feels good, if
I
it feels
agree.
like torture, it's not going to work.
Then stop, take a break, and
Right.
refocus. Yeah, I agree. You
Right.
have to go with how it feels, and take those cues, because sometimes our proprioception is a bit off too, where we think we're doing something. That's why I always say videos are important with students. Sometimes it's good to watch yourself on a video just to say, "Oh, I'm not quite leaning back as far as I really thought that I was."
That's right.
It's a
That's
big
right.
eye opener sometimes. Yeah,
Very important to film your
yeah,
sets, even film the warm up, because
yeah.
some days if I have extra energy, for example, then I find some days I have extra energy, and I find on my warm up video, I look at it before I do my main set, and I'm pulling out of the backswing too early. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
And that's just a result of having that extra cup of coffee, or I'm feeling good, and well, but it's not working with the technique. So even filming the warm up reps it gives you good information. It gives you good feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, you've achieved so much in this sport. And so tell me some of your greatest accomplishments so far. Share with us what those are. Some of your greatest moments.
Um, well, Judy DeMuro, one of our team members here in the U.S., talked me into doing it's a extreme marathon with a 12 kg snatch. I think I was the first woman to ever do full snatch
Oh my
for
gosh.
2 hours straight, a multi-switch, of course, multi-switch.
Yeah.
But I did this without too much training. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. That was quite an accomplishment. I think I got something like 2,218 reps, which was a national record. But it was about an 18 rep per minute pace.
Yeah.
That was super hard, because I'm not, that's just a ridiculous amount of time. But that was kind of fun in hindsight.
Yeah.
But one competition that I was training for long before this was in 2011, long before I was doing the 24 kg, was 270 reps with the 16 kg. That was one of my prouder accomplishments. Now, if you take that performance and put it in front of a judge today, they would probably say you're not fixating long enough, or you're not, it was not by the standards of today's lifters and today's judges, but it wasn't bad. And I might have to do it again cleanly, though, like really cleanly. I'd like to see if I can do it again, but I'd really have to I'd really have to train for that.
Yeah.
Because that's it's a fast pace. And then after that, I guess my latest with the 24 kg was pretty satisfying, because when I did that, it was in May and in the midst of COVID, but I was very relaxed. And that day I was just really calm, and I said to myself, just let it happen, see what you can do. I didn't really have a goal in mind. I just wanted to hopefully make a PR. Yeah. And I just let my body do its thing. And at the end, I was really surprised that it wasn't as grueling as other sets of lesser results have been.
Wow. You were just ready.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's sometimes when, we get into that mindset of, and this happens in all sports, right? We get in the mindset, I'm just going to go through this, and you kind of get that I always call it the Rocky face on, yeah. Right? But sometimes when we're doing sport, when we're trying to have that efficient energy and being able to breathe and focus, it's almost more like a dance rather than that kind of punchy energy, right?
Exactly.
It just happens. Yeah.
Exactly. That punchy energy it works for short intervals, shorter sets. Yeah. But to get to the platform and really make a long 10-minute set and do well, there's got to be a nice combination of the calm and the energy. But if you give too much energy, you defeat yourself. It's a really difficult balance.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure. And so let's touch on, because there's a lot more to kettlebell sport for sure, but in any physical activity, there's a lot more than just the physical. that's needed to be dialed in for you to be able to achieve what you have achieved, 5 world championships, like PRs and everything else, and progressing the way that you have. So let's talk a little bit about mental tenacity and the grit that's needed for those things to be able to happen.
Yeah, it's a lot of mental. We're still always learning, all of us. I don't think that ever ends.
No.
I find that besides visualization and trusting one's ability, I think it's important to just stay calm. And for me, if I don't focus on the result I want, I can stay calm and be in that good zone. If I'm thinking of a specific goal that I really am trying to achieve and that's in my head, then usually I'm not going to make it. So I need to push the result to the side and just let the event happen. And I find that I'm doing the Wim Hof breathing, the breathing every morning.
Love
for about
that.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I love it. It helps to keep me calm, focused. And I've been doing that for about 8 months or 9 months. And I find it's really a great way to start the day. So I do that each morning.
Amazing.
And I just try to go now with trusting my body, trusting the training, and I just try to get out of my head.
Yeah. Yeah. And so a little off topic, because you mentioned Wim Hof, because I remember I did the Wim Hof seminar and I loved it. It was great. The 2 minutes in the tub, I was like, can I stay in here? Because it's actually getting warm.
Really?
And so did you do the dip?
Yes. The first day was 2 minutes.
Yep.
And the second day was 3 minutes. I didn't want to stay, but I was able to bear it. It was okay, you know. It's really miraculous what the brain can do, and the breath, and how it calms you, and just you can withstand almost anything. It's amazing. I recommend it to so many people.
Yeah, I agree.
Really great.
Agree. Yeah. And I think that's, even when we just touch on that a little bit with regards to the breathing and the way the body calms down when you're in that cold plunge, right? It almost is like when you're on the platform where you have to kind of settle in and then everything just starts flowing, right? But yeah, I love that.
Exactly.
That was definitely a worthwhile seminar for me, and I plan on doing it again. I really enjoyed it. I did for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to do it again too. It's excellent.
And so let's talk a little bit about, because I know people are going to be curious, just how you get ready for competition. So just with regards to maybe a little bit of nutrition, hydration, like what do you focus on when you're kind of getting ready to compete? What are some of the things that you do?
The nutrition doesn't change. I basically go by the cues of what my body craves. I basically eat what I want, and that includes some sweets. Sometimes if I'm craving sweets, I replenish my glycogen with sweets. Or I've been eating a little bit more fat, and so I have mostly carbs and fat, good fats, and protein. But if I eat too much protein, it doesn't work well, and my kidneys my kidneys are overworked, and it shows high on my creatinine and on my blood results. So I stopped eating so much protein, a little bit more fat, and I actually feel better. My energy is better, and I recover better with a little bit more fat than protein. I always take branched chain amino acids and collagen powder in my pre and post workout water. I feel a difference if I don't take that. I take it every day. And then, in the 2 weeks to 10 days before competition, I just try not to have any stressors in my life, or I'm not on social media much at all, because that can stress me out.
Yes.
And
I think that can stress. That's a big stress for people, and they don't really realize it. Yeah.
Big stress. So I stay off social media, and then I make sure I get plenty of sleep. As long as I'm well rested, I'll be okay. That's about it. There's nothing else special that I do. It's just resting and reducing the stress levels.
Nice. Well, yeah, and you know what? That is the foundational baseline of any practicing healthy habits for sure. And you've touched on them all there. So I think that's really important. And branched chain amino acids, always a good
Yep.
addition, and collagen as well, for sure.
Yep.
And so what's next for you? What's next on the agenda? What are we going to be able to say, okay, we're ready. What's Lorna going to do next?
What's next? Well, I want to get my numbers up with the 24 kg. That's always going to be my mission until I get sick of it. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I until I get sick of it, I'm going to be working with the 24 kg. And another milestone I'd like to hit is 180, which would be 11 reps from my current PR.
Yeah.
And so it's just keeping a little bit of a faster pace and just staying calm. And I think it can be done. And I'm going to work toward that.
That's amazing. Amazing.
So that's the
And so we mentioned at the beginning that you are the creator of kettlebells, which you can do at home. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Tell us about the program, where your inspiration came from, and then how it works for people.
A lot of the movements and communication, the cues, the way I put together kettlebells is based on how I learned kettlebell fitness. Okay. Lots of unique movements, a lot of movements that I created myself. And kettlebells is, I have a DVD set and streaming on my website. There are 3 workouts, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And each workout has its own tutorial in the beginning. So I break down all of the movements, how to do them, what is typically done incorrectly, how to correct it. And so you can reference the tutorials before you go into the actual workouts. The workouts are done with 2 bells, a 15 and a 25, typically for women, depending on their level. And usually I recommend a 20 or a 25 and a 35 for men. So you've got one light and one a little bit heavier. Mm-hmm. Some movements use the bells together. That is more in the advanced level, but in the beginner level, we'll use 1 bell at a time. So we've got, it's mainly high cardio, high rep movements. So it's not like kettlebell sport, but it's high cardio, fat burning, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Oh, amazing. And so how can people how can they get this? How can they find it?
Kettlebells on Amazon, or go to lornafit.com, lornafit.com, and you can get the DVD, or if you're like most people and don't use DVDs anymore, you can get it streaming from my website. So you can get all 3 levels or just individual levels, and each of them have the tutorial. It was really fun to produce that and put it together, all the movements, all the, direction. And it was really a lot of fun to put that together.
Oh, amazing. And you know what? Again, as I mentioned, so key right now, where a lot of people, gyms in Ontario just closed for another month, right? It's something where you can stay active at home. Daily movement practice is so important for our mental health, just for our bodies. We're meant to move. So that's a great option for people. People getting in touch with you, let's say they want to do kettlebell sport or do coaching, give us some options. Tell them what you have available for them.
Options, you can contact me through lornafit.com or on social media. Mm-hmm. So it's Facebook and Instagram that I'm most active on. Also, I have my videos on YouTube. And I am available to coach those who want to begin in kettlebell sport, to compete, or just learn the movements for conditioning or training for other sports. And I'm also available for general population training, general fitness training. It doesn't have to be kettlebells. It can be bands, dumbbells, body weight, whatever you'd like. You want to do it in person? I'm here in Connecticut now, in Stamford. Or remotely is always easy, anywhere in the world. As a matter of fact, I have clients who moved from New York City to Mallorca, mm-hmm. and I see them their time morning, my time afternoon, and I train them 4 days a week. She's in her mid-50s, he's 83, and I see them every day, and I train them still, and I've been with them for 5 years, and they work out in their homes, and I work with them, and I love it. It's so wonderful.
Well, and you know what? That is the one thing with regards to being able to use things like Zoom, is we really can train anyone, anywhere, right? Is that you have the option to do that. And I think that's really, really powerful for people. And so Absolutely. I'll make sure that all of those links to contact you are in the bio. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, as well as Google Play and Apple Podcasts. And so, Laura, I wanted to thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. What an inspirational story. And just for those, if you are struggling with something, that is health related, don't give up, right? Focus, find something you love. And again, just making sure that you're moving every day, because our bodies are meant to move.
And not for any results, just find something you love.
Absolutely.
Find what you love. And then it doesn't have to be anything results oriented, just dancing, whatever, just keep moving.
Yeah, I agree. But daily movement is the key. So again, thanks for joining us, Lorna. Thank you to everybody for watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast hosts. We are here every other week with a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to today's show. Head over to Pitel-Killah.com to gain access to some amazing free resources that will help you gain energy, erase debilitating symptoms, and be the best version of you. Remember to give this podcast a like and follow me on social media at Pitel-Killah. I'm here every 2 weeks with a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. Until next time.